My guest is here, though. I don't want to bring him on. I don't like my guests to wait. We are joined. Let me bring him on. There you are.
Here I am.
We're joined. There you are. We're joined with Jerry Gray. Jerry Gray is host of Jerry's Take on China. He has lived in China for more than 20 years, and he has traveled more than 30,000 kilometers on a bicycle across the country. I put that in because I find that to be an amazing factoid. How you doing, Jerry? You doing okay tonight?
I'm doing good. Thanks for the invite again. It's always good to come on your show.
Well, it's always good to have you, man. I always appreciate these conversations, and I always learn something in these conversations.
So
I guess we have to start with TikTok, since that's the thing that's probably the highest item on the marquee. So, from my understanding, the Biden administration passed the law that said that TikTok needed to divest from China to the tune of 20%, meaning China couldn't own more than 20% of the company. Trump administration comes in, and a lot of back and forth, a lot of loud words, but for all intents and purposes, Donald Trump is going to have people like Larry Ellison, some of these other corporations, to take the 80%.
Yep.
And China will continue to get the 20%. And this deal is supposed to take place at the very least before the end of the year. Trump has given another extension on it while the negotiations take place. Now, your point was in the email that this is being grossly misreported. Mm-hmm. How is this being misreported? Did I say anything wrong in my explanation of this? Because from my point of view,
your explanation is fine. No problem with your explanation at all.
Because what they want to do is change it, from my understanding.
Let's backtrack a little bit. First of all, in America, this is known as the TikTok ban. This is not a ban of TikTok. What this is any app, any channel, any group of people online, any online platform that the president deems to be a threat to national security can be taken down. TikTok is just the one that they're aiming for. So fundamentally, what we have here is not a TikTok ban at all. This is exactly what they accuse China of. China has banned all of our apps. Well, that's not actually true. China has never banned any of them. There's a couple that, for whatever reason, have now been banned. But effectively, all of these groups, the Googles, the Alphabets, the Metas, all of them do not operate in China, although many of them have a presence in China. Microsoft has a huge presence. Google has a huge presence. They operate in China, but they operate under Chinese laws. And Chinese laws say that they must store their data inside of China. They must allow access for police investigations using court orders. They must not harvest or profit from any of the data that is registered as private data. And that is something they refuse to accept, because if you think about it, why is YouTube free? It's free because they are taking all of our data, scraping it away, selling it to all different people so they can target advertisers. And that is what China has forbidden. Can't be done. It can be done with my permission expressly. I give my permission for you to use, but of course it can't be done legally. The European Union are trying to do this, and groups like Facebook or Meta are suggesting they're going to pull out. So that's the first thing. This is not a TikTok ban. The second thing is that if anybody approaches a VPN to get into any of these banned sites, then they commit a very large offense. So VPNs are illegal, effectively, to access these. So that's the two things that American people don't seem to realize. When you read the document, when you read the legislation, it's not about TikTok at all. It's about any platform that the president deems to be a threat to national security. The second thing is that if you do access one of those through a VPN, both you and the VPN commit an offense. So VPNs are going to block you from this. And this is, again, exactly what they try to assert that China does. China doesn't do this. China has no laws about this. There are no VPN. There are VPN restrictions, but there's not a ban on VPN. There's not a ban on TikTok. There's not a ban on Facebook or YouTube or Google or any of these things. What these companies choose not to do is operate inside of China under China's laws. So that's the first thing that's wrong about this. The second thing is that it's being reported here in China that the parent company, Douyin, are going to keep the algorithm. A new algorithm will be issued for the American market. So America will have a different algorithm. So effectively what you're going to get in America is controlled American propaganda, Whereas if I access it through a VPN, can have anything on TikTok as long as I'm not accessing it through an American VPN server.
Yes.
So if I go to Australia, I can watch it. If I go to Vietnam, I can watch it. If anywhere in the world that is not America, I can watch the global TikTok that is not the American TikTok. So when people say this is a win for America, this is not a win at all. Douyin has made a lot, or is going to make a lot of money. They're going to keep control of the most important aspect of this, which is their own algorithm. And that's exactly what these corporations and people like Zuckerberg in Meta wanted. They wanted access to all of the algorithms, which they don't know how it works. It's much better than anything they've got. So TikTok has an algorithm that is pretty good, and they want that, and they're not getting it. They're getting an American algorithm, a separate algorithm just for America. So Americans are getting shortchanged here, and that's really what it boils down to. It's not a win for America. By the way, do you know what Biden did? When the law was passed, Biden put a stay on it and said, I'm going to leave this decision to my successor, whoever my successor will be, because he wanted to kick that can down the road before the election. No president is going to ban TikTok before an election. That is why they can't do it, because 100 million Americans are using TikTok, making money from TikTok. A lot of them are making money from TikTok. It's a huge business opportunity for many, mostly young people, and many of them of an age where they will vote. And if a president says, I'm going to do this differently, they might vote for that president. But if a president were to have banned it before the election, not a chance of getting a win from the potentially 100 million voters, young voters, mostly young voters. Most of the people on TikTok, except for me, I'm on TikTok, are young.
So just to be clear, among the investors, which are expected to be roughly 80% of the TikTok, the Chinese shareholders will remain the rest. You have Oracle, Andreessen Horowitz, and Silver Lake, this was said. All of these people are Zionists, hardcore Zionists. And let's be clear, Jonathan Greenblatt from the ADF, not ADF, American Defamation League, ADL, pointed out that we need to get our hands on TikTok. He was very clear. We need to capture TikTok. And
part of a lot of people want to capture TikTok, and now they've got an American TikTok. It's as simple as that. Europeans are not going to be watching the same TikTok. Chinese people are not watching. We already have a different thing. It's called Douyin, which is the parent company. And Douyin is great. It's full of mathematical science. It's full of entertainment. It's got lots of dancing. There's nothing. There's nothing political on TikTok, and there shouldn't be. There's nothing pornographic, and I don't think there is in the American version either. I'm not certain of that. There's nothing seditious. You can't be insulting. These are the laws that they have in China, and our TikTok is nice, clean, healthy, fun. And it is quite fun. You scroll through it, it's harmless fun. And that's what it ought to be. It's social media. It's not meant to be news. It's not meant to be hard-hitting and cutting edge. If you want to do that, you should be able to get that from your media. But obviously nowadays we don't. So we go to places like X and a couple of other things. But yeah, generally speaking, we get our news from alternative sources now. And TikTok should never have been a news site. It's for dancing, singing, pulling pranks. And in China, it's actually really, really educational.
Well, that's the rub, though. The videos that were uploaded to TikTok were showing the reality of what was taking place on the ground in Gaza. Yeah. Many of those videos were uploaded by Israelis themselves, meaning them dancing and taking glee and murdering babies. Yeah. And so the ADL, his issue was, we need to get our hands on this because we believe that this is affecting the point of view of Americans in regards to Israel and the war itself. So their take of this, it wasn't that they cared so much about TikTok. Their thing was, too much of this content is giving Americans an impression of the reality of what's taking place on the ground. We don't like that, and we need to somehow control that. And so the people who are getting their hands on it are people who don't. Ellison donated more than $10 million to the IDF to put it in perspective. So these are the people who are going to be managing it. And to back up your other point, all of these people are directly involved in the deep state, quote unquote, as they call it in the United States, meaning the military industrial complex. They are going to just turn it into a propaganda outlet. That's all it's going to be.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you want, because it won't be banned, if you want to use a VPN, you can. Now, one of the interesting things is the number of there's a survey being put out on the number of inquiries about how to get a VPN, and America is by far and away the largest number of inquiries into how to get a VPN. But here's another thing: most of your VPNs, not all, but most of them are owned by Zionists. They're owned by Israel. ExpressVPN, which is probably one of the biggest, has just sold out to an Israeli company. So it was already partially Israeli owned, but it's sold out to an Israeli company. So there's a lot of different, I don't know who owns all of them. I use a VPN all the time, and I'll be quite honest, I don't really care that someone's tracking me or anything like that, because I'm not doing anything I shouldn't, and the Chinese government don't care about what I'm doing. So I've never had a problem. There's a lot of police here who know that I operate as a YouTuber. I was just in the immigration department yesterday. What do you do for a living? I'm retired. Oh, do you have any income? I get a little bit from YouTube. That's it. Oh, you've got a YouTube channel? Yeah. So we chatted about that. They know I can't have a YouTube channel without a VPN. I'm not breaking any laws here. They're not really fussed about that. So again, Americans are misinformed about what's really happening on the ground in China. And now they've been misinformed about what's happening in their own Congress. They're misinformed about what's happening in their own trade delegations. The trade delegations, a lot of people are saying, this is a quid pro quo and China's going to get something from Trump. Well, maybe they will. Maybe they won't. I don't think they will. What Trump really, really wants is rare earth elements. He wants China to de-restrict the rare earth elements. And I can promise you, with my hand on my heart, and put it on a Bible or a Quran or whatever anybody wants me to do, this is not going to happen. China has written laws that say these are controlled. This is like drugs. China does not export fentanyl precursors to America. China exports only under controlled and restricted conditions. So if the American people are buying this, they're not buying it legally from China. This is another misinformation thing that's being put about by the American media and American politicians. China has done more than any other country to control the sale of fentanyl and fentanyl precursors, more than any other country, including the United States of America. So what's happened now is the same with rare earths. They have controlled rare earths, and they're only sold for the purposes of peaceful development. So no military industrial complex organization can buy them. And they've also set up a new department inside of China with several hundred employees that are managing every single export of rare earths. So these rare earths are now going to the sort of people that need them, such as medical equipment manufacturers, battery manufacturers, the people who are making stuff. And it's being done very, very controlled way. It can only be sold if the end user has a certification. So the end user needs to produce proof that they used what they got in the products that they get before they can get any more. So that's going to be, it already is in place. China is not going to suddenly say, oh, well, we're going to relax rare earths for you. America now needs to find a new source of rare earths outside of China for its military. All the medical equipment can still have rare earths.
Well, that's a rational act. I mean, when you get the United States, it's a rational act. When you get the United States looking at the Philippines, Japan, Australia, saying, hey, are you ready to die for the dignity of America? Are you willing to do that? Because for all intents and purposes, they were talking about this Asian pivot with this idea of some kind of military confrontation with China. Why on earth would China give them the means to have military conflict with that same China? It makes no sense, right?
All of these things were going into weapons that are now pointing at China,
Exactly.
It's as simple as that. The pivot to Asia started around about 2015, 2017. It really confirmed. But 2015, Obama started it, and it's been going every single year since then. It goes up and it goes down. Right now, it's in a phase where it's up. I see things from Washington, from ASPI in Australia. I'm reading the news and seeing AUKUS is AUKUS all the time. And this is the Australian submarine deal, which is a very bad deal for Australia. In a bad deal in every sense, not just in the defense sense, but in every sense of the word. This is basically Australia paying for the submarine core of the United States over the next 10 or 12 years. It's really, really bad.
Yeah. And it screwed over the French also. Yeah, that's a whole other.
Yeah, well, that was another thing. The French actually did quite well out of it because they started the work on, I think, 6 submarines, which were going to replace the Australian Collins-class submarines. They were non-nuclear. They were shallow water. They're basically not attack submarines. So the French had a deal, and they were going forward with this. And then in order to get out of the deal, Australians had to pay, I think, $6 billion. And then the French have got these partially completed submarines that they can put out on the open market. Anyone want a submarine? We've got some here. So they'll sell them again. They'll do all right out of it, I think. I don't think the French were really that upset. They made a show of being upset, but I don't think they were really upset.
Yeah, they made us think about it. They definitely made us think about it.
They got what they wanted out of it. That basically, you break a contract, you pay a clause, you pay a penalty. There was a penalty clause in there. Australia had to pay $6 billion for something they never got. So it's a lot of money. The French companies have got submarines partially completed and $6 billion in the bank. So I think they did all right.
Yeah, the Asian pivot was Obama's baby. This idea of diversification of resources, or we're going to have the Europeans deal with the Russians. We're going to have Israel deal with Iranians in the Middle East, and we're going to pivot to Asia. And we haven't necessarily been able to make that pivot. And it's wild because in every war game scenario, we lose. And so it seems like what the U.S. wants is we need someone to suck up the missiles that are going to come raining down if we indeed try to attack China or provoke China. So Australia, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, Philippines, etc. We need you to do that. We need you to be our proxies in that region. And I keep thinking to myself, why on earth do they think Ukraine is a good model for them? And yet it's a question mark on whether these countries would actually be that stupid to get into some kind of war in that sense. So
I'm not sure that it's stupid. If we go to war, it will get ugly. Benny Hill just said that, which is not unfair statement. It's going to get very, very ugly. China is not going on an aggressive war. China is not going to take over anything. It's not even going to take over Taiwan. It already owns Taiwan, and all it's doing is waiting until the politics settle down. Now, China will defend Taiwan. We've discussed this before, and they've made this very clear. They will defend their property. They're going to defend Hong Kong. They're going to defend Macau. They're going to defend Taiwan. They're defending Xinjiang and Xinjiang, Tibet. So they're really defending their own borders and sovereignty and nothing more than that. That's what China is interested in doing. That's why they had the big military parade a couple of weeks ago. And it was a beautiful parade. I watched it. I did a live stream from it. And that got canned by CCTV, but never mind. The whole thing was a great experience to do that, and it was a great experience to watch that. And that is what really is important. What China is doing is saying, look at us, look at what we've got. And people are looking at this and going, wow. But what they're not showing is what they've really got. They're in the 6th generation of fighter jets, and they're only showing the 5th generation. So stuff like that, it really does exist, and it is in China. It's not a PowerPoint presentation or a cartoon drawing. It's not an animation. China has got the stuff they need. Now, I think Australia is fairly safe. Australia is fairly safe. I think it's fairly safe because there's only 3 sites in Australia that China would even think about hitting, and probably only one that they would really want to hit, and that's Pine Gap. It's right in the middle of Australia. It's full of Americans, and they're all intelligence. It is the most important strategic site outside of the United States. It's the second, I think it's the second most important intelligence gathering site in the world for the Americans. So it's very important. It will take one missile, and they have hypersonics that can hit that thing, basically destroy it. And that's the end of America's intelligence gathering for the Southern Hemisphere. Now, when that happens, if that ever were to come about, Australia would be firing blind. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have the firepower aimed. So their Guam, their all of the stuff they've got in Japan, the stuff they've got in South Korea. I mean, literally, they have surrounded, and they're trying to get Mongolia, they're trying to get Vietnam, they've got the Philippines, they're trying to get China surrounded on the East Coast. And that's why one of the reasons they wanted Afghanistan. Many people don't know this. Afghanistan shares a border with Xinjiang. They wanted Kazakhstan. Remember, there was an attempted color revolution in Kazakhstan a couple of years ago. The Russians went in there, bang, stopped it, and then left. So that was all part of containment of China. China borders a lot of countries, and if China's sea routes are blocked, then everything goes by train across Xinjiang and Inner Mongolia. So they wanted troops and things, and they want to destabilize Mongolia. They want to destabilize Inner Mongolia. The China-Pakistan economic corridor is destabilized now by what's happened in Nepal. What's happening between China and India is being destabilized by what's happening in Bangladesh, what's happening in Assam, what's happening in the Punjab, what's happening in all these other places. India's got its own problems that we're not hearing about on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. So geopolitically, China's right in the middle of all of these firestorms, and it's keeping its own calm. It's keeping very, very cool.
Yeah, you make a really good point. This is defensive. Like the fires that are being coincidentally started in all of these other countries. This is not defensive in nature. This is an offensive move in order to contain China.
Well, Myanmar is a border. Thailand is not. Thailand is not a border with China, but it's very close. And Cambodia is a border with China. So Myanmar, Cambodia, Sri Lanka is an important port. Pakistan is not bordering. It does border China, but way up in the northwest. But Pakistan is very important because it has Gwadar Port. Gwadar Port is in the province of Gwadar, which borders Iran, which of course Gwadar is now the most unstable. It's Balochistan, the most unstable region of Pakistan. And Pakistan has just signed a mutual defense treaty with Saudi Arabia, which is a really interesting thing. So there's a lot of stuff going on now, which it's all part of a huge jigsaw puzzle, and years ahead. They're thinking years ahead, much further than I can possibly think. I'm just a guy who rides a bike. There you go. Yeah,
you're more than that, Jerry. Come on, you're more than that.
Well, that's what I am to me.
This looks like the beginnings of a third world war. I mean, like the movements and the way this stuff is shaking out. These little conflicts that have clear political sides to them and political rationale to the reason that these fires are being set in all of these countries. No, you're right. China's remaining calm, but let's be clear. A lot of this stuff is aimed directly at China, and China's taking a defensive posture.
And any country that aligns itself with China now, any country that aligns itself geopolitically, defense-wise. So China isn't another interesting point. China has never signed a mutual defense pact with any country. It signed security pacts, it signed security treaties, but it's never signed a mutual defense. So it's not going to war with another country or for another country. It's not even getting involved in Israel and Gaza. A lot of people are critical of China for this. It's not involved in Russia, Ukraine. It's selling to both. It's selling to Gaza and it's selling to Israel as well. It hasn't pulled back its diplomats from any of these countries. It simply says it's business as normal, but we're going through the United Nations to try and get this calm, try and get this settled. It's very rare for China to actually come out and say anything that is any more than just we want this to be sorted, we want this to be settled. China is the peacemaker, the mediator, the negotiator. It does all of these things, and if it takes one side, it can't help negotiate with the other side. So it does this deliberately. It's quite deliberate. It's a non-interference policy. It does not interfere in any sovereign nation anywhere. And I challenge anyone to prove me wrong on that, because there is no evidence. And there's a lot of allegations and a lot of assertions, but there's no evidence that China has ever interfered with the running of a sovereign nation.
No, I'm unaware of it. I mean, yes, you're right. There's a heaping amount of criticism on continuing trade with Israel, considering China is their number one trading partner if you look at the European Union as individual blocks.
Yeah.
And we've had arguments on this channel about it also that has had horrible outcomes in regards to the guests that have come on this channel. But that's
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.